You have a screwdriver.
That's just in case.
There's not too much going to escape you. And he could talk at the same time and then bring them in. Did Wally do the same thing? Right. It's a family-sized jumper.
That goes to a man in New York. And
Are you serious?
He has decreased by 10 inches since the last one he got made.
In this particular piece I'm using 4 weft colours.
Right.
So I have 9 repeats of 8 1/4 inches, which is going to give me 74 inches, and that's going to make me end of my rug, so I start again.
Right, you just blinded me with science there. Now, I just asked you not to do it, but I get the idea. There are certain times of the year you're not supposed to eat shellfish, isn't that right?
Yeah.
Is this one of them?
Well, I don't know really. Don't know the times of year.
We're putting our lives in your hands here, you know. I often wonder if in some post-apocalyptic world we all had to survive by relying on our own skills, how many of us could manage to provide ourselves with the basic necessities. Very few of us in the so-called developed world actually make anything anymore, at least not with our own hands and not with the materials that nature provides. That's mostly because, as consumers, we simply buy anything that we need. And as a result, we've lost the traditional skills cultivated by our ancestors and handed down from generation to generation as basic survival strategies. I say mostly because there are places in Ireland where those basic survival strategies have not only endured, but they have thrived, to the point where that traditional skill set has been taken on to another level, to become craftwork of the highest quality. This is one such place. Welcome to the parish of Kilcar in the southwest of County Donegal. The people of the parish of Kilcar live between the mountains and the sea and have always gleaned productively from both. Fish and other foodstuffs from the ocean, mutton and wool from the sheep, colourful dyes from the crottle-covered rocks wedged among the heathery hillsides, and inspiration from that unique combination of elements that is the coast of southwest Donegal. All you had to add to nature's bounty was a liberal application of the kind of human know-how you acquired at your granny's knee, or indeed at your granda's elbow, depending on whether you needed to knit yourself a livelihood or weave a bit of magic on the loom. But before you could do either, you had to keep body and soul together, and the strand at low tide was fertile foraging ground for those who knew what to look for and what to do when they found it. These are times of plenty for the local population, so the exercise today is precisely that. A walk in the bracing air of Trawan and the Muckross Peninsula whilst trying to scoop barnya or limpets off the barnacle-encrusted rocks to see if we can make a palatable meal of them, just as earlier generations would have had to do in leaner times. The barnya wouldn't exactly be the go-to choice of the seafood gourmet, as they have a reputation for being a bit rubbery and chewy. So the ladies and I are not that familiar with the process of gathering or cooking them. But we're under the leadership of a remarkable young man called Enda Harkin, who assures us all that he has done both before and has obviously lived to tell the tale. What age were you?
6 or 7.
You were only 6 or 7? You started to pull them off the rocks yourself?
Yeah.
And you cooked them yourself?
Yeah. And I went over to my neighbour's. He was a fisherman, you see.
Aye.
And I went over to see how you cooked them. And then he told me, and I went over and got the pot out and all.
And you were allowed at 6 or 7 years of age to do that? Right. I'm telling you, you were young to be starting that.
Aye.
There we go, up there. And
For the taxonomically minded among you, I can tell you that the barnya, or limpet, belongs to the Patellidae family. These are Patella vulgata, and unlike the barnacles all around and on top of them, they can move around to browse on the rocks. They can live for up to 20 years, so many of these bigger barnya will be older than Enda himself, although he is remarkably mature for someone who's still only 12 years of age. Nonetheless, he's not only our head forager, he's also our head chef.
so it was Enda got these in the first place, and then you all stole them on him, was that basically it?
No, we were picking all morning.
You were, right. Did people eat these traditionally in these parts, did they? The barnya?
Years
on
ago
top?
they did.
Aye.
Yeah. They liked all sea foods, you know, all the sea shell things like the cockles and the mussels and the
I used to talk to a woman up in Clonmany, you know, in North Donegal one time, and she was very fond of the seafood, cockles and the mussels and the rest of that. But these, she would cook these, but she said these were very tough.
But like chewing gum. But if you fry them afterwards, after you boil them, it sort of softened them a little bit.
So you boil them first of all,
And then fry them.
and then fry them. Right.
Yeah.
And did you spice them up with anything else or any other flavours or anything?
They were nice with little bits of diced bacon.
Yes,
Aye.
yes.
Because I wouldn't fancy, even if rubber was well boiled and rubber was fried, it would still chew. It would still chew like
They
rubber
still had the
afterwards.
salty taste of the sea. You know, even though they were a bit on the...
Fair enough.
Now I have to set the scene for the slightly surreal culinary adventure that follows. This is Kate's cottage, which belongs to Enda's mother. And Julianne is an English artist who happened to be renting the cottage at the time of our visit. Did she mind if we used the kitchen area for our experiments? Not in the least, was her gracious reply, as long as we didn't have to use the table, because that would take a while to clear. So our 12-year-old head chef put his sous chefs to work prepping up. From the left, Anne-Marie Lyons is chopping onions, Margaret Di Vradi is shelling the already boiled barnya, and Lou Chestnut is filling the room with the smell of fresh garlic.
These already were cooked.
Yeah.
What did you do with those?
You boil them, and then you take them out of the shell. You get some garlic, butter and onion.
Right.
And maybe whatever else.
Right.
And you put it into the pan, and you fry it up for a couple of minutes, and it'll be nice then.
There are certain times of the year you're not supposed to eat shellfish, isn't that right?
Yeah.
Is this one of them?
Well, I don't know really. Don't know the times of year now.
We're putting our lives in your hands here. You know, you're going to be responsible for the future of these people. Anyway, sure, nothing beats it dry. There's a lovely smell now. You can smell the onions and you can smell the garlic.
Here.
You haven't got a wee bottle of wine tucked away anywhere at all, chilling somewhere, have you? I don't know. Right. Here goes. I have to say, Enda, very tasty, isn't it? It really is. But we were right about they're chewy.
Aren't they chewy?
They are very, very chewy. Really good. Right. If I'm still alive tomorrow, I'll be saying, well done, Enda.
Right.
We're back down the road in the direction of the Tra Wan again, because this is where Kathleen Mahon lives and works, surrounded by her raw material and also by the colours and textures that are often reflected in the wonderfully wrought objects that she brings into being. Kathleen is a one-woman cottage industry, a prodigiously productive knitting genius in my estimation, who has built up a bit of an international reputation, because her traditional Irish garments are as likely to be found in New York or Chicago these days as in the town of Killybegs nearby. Kathleen could knit in her sleep, I think, but she's much better company when she's awake because she's also a fascinating conversationalist.
I think you knit almost unconsciously.
I do.
You do it
I
so-
do. Well, should have anybody that's at it as long as I'm at it.
But how do you, I mean, seriously, this is a serious question. How do you, this is a complicated pattern that you're doing, right? And the pattern's obviously in your head at this stage. And you don't even have to look at your hands.
No,
Do you know what
you
you're
can
doing?
feel it with your fingers.
So but you have to think about it, or
No.
can you just switch off? Is it automatic pilot?
It is, aye. At this stage, after all these years, I would be very stupid if I didn't know what I was doing by now.
But I mean, they're all different. I mean, I'm looking.
They are all different. We make them different. I make them different. I make up the patterns as I go along.
Right.
And then you don't get bored looking at the same. I don't get bored, and the person buying it has something a wee bit different than what everybody else has.
But I'm admiring the speed with which you're doing it. It's lightning speed.
No.
And I'm not just saying this because to please you, because I've never
No.
seen anybody doing it any faster.
No.
The
I have a
speed of
sister
work-
who does it faster.
Seriously.
Yes. Her whole body moves when she's working. Her whole body moves.
Kind
when
of
she's working.
exercise.
Yeah.
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 Right.
Ach no, the hands are slowing down now with arthritis and whatnot. It's
Well, I wouldn't like to see you when you were young and in your prime, though, because
no,
you would have been a
it's
blur.
It's not the way it used to be.
Right.
No.
No, you're not at, I'm not going to ask you what age you are. I can't
No,
remember.
but,
An indelicate thing to do. But
You don't do that really, do you?
No, okay. But you started as a small child?
I would say we started in knit before we ever went to school, and that'd be 5 years of age.
Get away.
Yes. There was no tablets, you must remember. There was no DSs, there were no Xboxes.
Nothing to keep you
Nothing.
occupied.
No.
Did you have TV, electricity, anything
God,
like that?
not at all.
At 5-year-old?
No.
So knitting
No.
was a pastime.
It was. And then the mothers and the grannies and all were doing it anyway. So you sort of said, well, show me what's that you're doing, give me a bit. And yeah. I'll tell you a funny story. We were so small that we weren't given knitting needles. We were given quills. You know what quills are?
Quills from a feather,
Yes.
you mean, right?
Yes, the stem of a feather.
Right.
That's what we were given to practice on because we were too small.
Because you couldn't hold
You'd be
those.
too, no, you'd be too, it might be dangerous. These wooden ones weren't going then, it would have been
The wee metal ones.
the metal ones,
Right,
I'm not here now.
So you
The
weren't
metal
trusted with them, but you were.
No.
And could you actually knit something at
could.
that age?
You couldn't. You could make a wee patch, or you could cast on stitches and
A scarf, an everlasting scarf type
yes,
of
and
a
it got
thing.
wide and it got thin and it got wide and it got thin, depending how much you dropped stitches and increased stitches and so on.
But as children, you did it because you enjoyed it. I
Because
assume?
you enjoy, well, it was something to do, and you felt suppose you were like an adult if you were doing the same as what they were doing.
Right. So you just sit there at 5 and talk away as if you
You ripped and you hooked and you poked and you...
get away. So other children were playing with tea sets and you were knitting.
Yeah.
The point is that your mother was doing it, your granny was doing it, and all the adult women in the area, because it was actually at one stage of history an important way of bringing money into the house.
Apart from that, it was all the jumpers, socks were knitted for men, for children, for everything. You weren't going to the shop and buying jumpers.
So everything woolen was knitted in
Yes,
the house.
and you see, the granny would be a spinner. She'd spin the wool up the sheep, and then the jumpers and the socks would be knitted. Now I'm going back very far back. This is my oldest memory.
What does it take? I mean, you're at it a long time, as you say yourself, right? You hand down this skill down the generations.
Yeah.
But you must need some basic talent for this thing.
No, you must need a love for it.
Well, that's part of it.
You must need a love for it. I think, looking back, that I must have always loved wool. Because one of my memories going back is my mother was widowed when we were very, very small children. And there was this man, he's dead now, God rest him, he used to come on an evening about September, October, with a bag of wool over his shoulder because he was weaving for somewhere. And I used to love to see this bag of wool come and thinking, oh God, I can't wait to get into that. See what kind of colour is it.
So you just loved the
I
texture
just loved
of
it. I loved it. And I loved picking out the colours I was going to make my school jumper of because there was no uniforms, and things like that. So I think I always had a liking for the wool. I love wool.
Kathleen Mahon, a reverie of childhood in every stitch, and every stitch fastened by an unbroken tradition stretching back for generations of mothers and daughters as the quiet click of needles accompanied conversation. Not so for the menfolk whose looms could be heard across the still waters of Donegal's bays. Weaving a way of life when we come back. The village of Kilcar has retained the old ways as well as embracing the new, because the people of Kilcar know the value of both in terms of providing livelihoods and revenue. Here in the Ashland Centre, for instance, you can learn all the Irish words for keeping fit and living a healthy lifestyle, while you're discovering more about holy wells and the ancient customs and beliefs that still prevail in this part of the world. Tourism is an important aspect of the town's economy, but so too is an industrial base that manages to combine state-of-the-art technology with a traditional set of skills. The making of tweed has been and will continue to be the mainstay of Kilcar. Back in the year 1908, 150,000 yards of tweed was sold in this village alone. Today's output may dwarf that figure, but only because in moving forward the townspeople have not abandoned the past. Thus you have in this factory a highly mechanised industrial loom turning out carpets for the world's airlines with engineered precision and unrelenting efficiency. Whilst right next door there's a man plying his trade on a wooden frame that was weaving wool long before air travel was ever heard of. The one is, of course, the origin of the other, And John Heena learnt his trade at a time when every second cottage in South Donegal had its own spinning wheel, its own loom, and its own weaver.
So you started out with one about half the size of this
Yeah.
here, and was that at home when you were
I
started weaving?
I started off at home in 1970. And the days when we started off with the telly lamp, methylated.
You didn't even have electricity in the house?
We didn't know, not at our time, no, because we were born and reared way out on the edge of the Loris Point Peninsula.
Loris Point.
Loris Point in Ardra, yeah.
That's up near Ardra, yeah.
Yeah. And the townland I was born in, there were 6 houses and there was 8 weavers actually in the 6 houses.
Really? Seriously?
Yeah. And just across the bay is Narrow Bay, like, the bay only about half a mile wide, there was fellas weaving on the far side of the bay as well. And you get a nice calm weather, you could actually hear the shuttle going over and back.
Across the bay?
Yeah. They could do the same, they could hear us, yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So rather than sitting watching TV, which you didn't have electricity, you could hear all the looms going in the middle of the evening.
And like see in Ardra, there was hundreds of weavers in Ardra. You had a lot of weavers in Kilcar, Glencolmkill, you know.
Yeah.
The farmers, it was they did a bit of farming, did a bit of weaving, it worked both ways, you know. Yeah.
But it was a real traditional skill.
Yeah.
You had to learn that from somebody else. Does that come down from your parents?
Yeah, my father wove and my uncle actually wove. He went to Downings, to McNutt's in the Downings in 1952.
Right.
The year I was born.
That's right. Right. You're wearing pretty well now, I must say. And it was mostly the men who did this occupation.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Well, in later years, you know, I know a few women doing it, like, you know.
Yeah.
And there's no problem, like.
Yeah.
Maybe the wide looms could be a problem, you know, but...
Did you find it difficult, or did you take to it naturally at the start? Or
It came naturally, like, you know.
Fairly naturally?
Yeah.
Right.
But it's all about timing.
timing?
Yeah.
But you're proud of the kind of stuff that you can make in this here.
Exactly.
I think pride's got a lot to do with it.
Well, there's like you see, like in this here studio and all, like we get thousands and thousands of visitors, and they really admire what we're doing, like.
Yeah.
And you know, you feel good about it. At the end of the evening, you're doing something that you're pleasing somebody, and they're interested, and they're going to buy it. And
I was saying to you when I first came in at the start, there's something about this that reminds me of a piano player.
Right.
But the grand piano, and the pianist walks out on the stage and he does all these wonderful things with his hands and he plays this beautiful music and all these people are applauding. But I think there's an element of that. Whenever you get a crowd of visitors coming up a bus on here, and here you are, and they're bewildered by what's going on here.
Yeah.
But there is that sense of pride in
oh,
what
exactly.
you're doing.
Several people have mentioned that, you know.
Yeah. There's a performance art involved in it. Would that be fair?
Well, the loom is, of course, you have to tune the piano, and you have to tune the loom as well, like, you know.
Right. So lots of things can go wrong.
Oh, exactly.
Yes, as with all things in life, you learn from your mistakes. And young Kevin McGillicuddy tells me he has made plenty of those in the 4 years that he has spent acquiring the skills and the qualities needed to become a weaver. But hopefully, he'll be performing at this ancient instrument for many years yet to come. Down in the main foyer of the Ashland Centre, I came upon an exhibition recalling another craft that once flourished in every rural village, but has nowadays sadly all but disappeared. Willie Hall was a shoemaker who was born in the year 1901, and when he died in 1984, the trade died with him. But fortunately, all the tools of that trade were preserved for posterity, and his friend John Haggerty is now able to revisit a skill set and a lifestyle that was once a core element of the Kilcar village community.
From 9 to 9 was his frigid hours.
9 to 9 is a long day.
9 to 9 every day,
Aye.
6 days a week.
Get away.
He did, and he reared 9 of the family.
As a shoemaker.
As a shoemaker.
See, and
shoe repairer and shoemaker,
Right.
because you can see the moulds there.
So he could make the whole thing from scratch.
Oh, he could, no problem at all.
Nearly every house had their own last.
That's right.
Was there a last on your house?
There were, and my father had done it like, you know, he would put on heels maybe and thing, and toe caps.
How did Willie Hall make his living then, if all the houses around had their own lasts?
All they done is just temporary things, maybe.
So they would only, at home you'd only do basic repairs, in other words?
That's right.
You wouldn't
very
make
basic.
You wouldn't make a whole
no,
shoe?
you would not.
Yeah.
You would use them out till
Well, I was going to say,
fall off you.
I was going to say, in an area where not a lot of people had an awful lot of money.
No, they didn't have
those
these.
boots and shoes had to last a long time.
They had to last, and they went. They lasted from one child to another.
Handed
the
down.
Next child handed down.
Handed down.
They
Yeah,
did.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just looking at some of these here now, and I'm intrigued by the size of these.
That's
you call
a child's shoe.
That's a child's
A
shoe.
child's mould.
But,
As you would know,
and
that
then-
children didn't have shoes. They were going about in the bare feet until they were near ready to go to school.
Whenever you see children who were photographs of them and so
Yeah.
on, and right up until relatively recent times,
Yeah,
I mean, they were running about in their bare feet.
that's right. That's
I mean,
right.
I daren't
I
ask.
went in the bare feet from the 4th of March. That was Cara Day, the local Cara station that's up
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
From the 4th of March until on in November, maybe.
So,
You were classed as a fairly tough client if you kept stayed in the bare feet until near Christmas.
did you actually? So for St. Cara's Day, which was, as you say, the 4th of March, right up to November, so all
Yeah.
through the summer months,
All
right?
through the summer months.
And you went in your bare feet.
I went to bare feet, went to church in the bare feet and thing. That was back in the 40s.
And that was normal for everybody else
It was
around,
normal for everybody.
So there you are. And your father would have had a last in the house for doing repairs.
Yeah.
And you probably picked up a few things from him as well.
I did indeed. Yeah, I
and
did.
so on. And every
And
household.
as well at the shoemaker, you would pick up things like,
Oh, would you be watching Wally doing what he was doing?
Oh yeah, that's right. You see, there was in my time there were at least six shoemakers in the parish,
6 of them.
There were 6 of them.
And there was work enough to keep 6 men
Oh,
going.
there were. Oh, definitely.
Right, right.